A very good morning to you and welcome to yet another edition of Newsline, and we meet you on yet another show with a very special guest today, and he has been a formidable force and a strength to the country's foreign diplomacy over the past. We've got Mr. Bernard Gunathilaka, former Foreign Secretary, with us on the show, and we've also got former diplomat and journalist Bandula Jayasekara with us. A very good morning to you.
Morning, Stephanie. We meet again.
Yes, we meet again.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Now let me give a bigger, more introduction on Mr. Gunathilaka. Mr. Bernard Gunathilaka was our permanent representative to the United Nations in New York. He was our ambassador to Washington. He was our ambassador to China, and he was the first ever Secretary General of the Peace Secretariat. That while he was serving in China, he came and started the Peace Secretariat. Plus, before he became the Foreign Secretary, Mr. Bernard Gunathilaka was also our permanent representative to Geneva. So let me start with Geneva.
Okay.
What do you think? Where are we heading in Geneva?
Well, it all depends how we manage the situation. We have an experienced diplomat as our ambassador there, and I'm sure he will be able to take the correct path and take care of the situation. So it's difficult to say at this point of time. They have had the first meeting with regard to the draft resolution.
Yeah, but Ravinath has resisted. I saw in the media that he has resisted the first draft resolution. He has said, look, he cannot agree.
Rightly so. And when you look at the draft resolution, you see 24 preambular paragraphs, 26 operative paragraphs. This all, if you look at it, it looks like a novel to me to read. It's quite a lengthy resolution. I do not know what is the need for.
You think they are laying a trap?
I don't think they are laying a trap.
And we are getting caught to it.
Not exactly. What I am trying to do is, we are close to Christmas. It is almost like hanging Christmas decoration on a Christmas tree. Everybody would like to hang something on that tree. So,
and will that tree fall?
Well, that depends how we handle the situation, and I hope we will be able to handle the situation correctly. There are many ways of handling resolution of this nature, so I am confident that our foreign ministry and the ambassador in Geneva will be able to take care of it.
Yeah, but isn't this rhetoric now? So, okay, we had the previous government. There were firefighting, we all knew. But you think now we have a new government? Of course, I have a lot of faith in the foreign minister, Mangala Samaravira. I think he's a good minister. But still, because certain people are playing politics, will that rhetoric help? No, because we are trying to sometimes play it to the gallery, to the masses. Will that help? But I think it's much more serious than that.
Well, there are two sides to it. That is, say, in Sri Lanka, there will be always the case of playing for the gallery. That's one thing. Yeah. Then, of course, when you go to Geneva, you have a situation where the Human Rights Council is very heavily politicized. And in that kind of a situation, you expect politics to play a very, very important role rather than real human rights situation or the conditions of the country.
Yeah, because I remember an American lawyer she became a diplomat. She worked for the Israeli mission in Geneva, and she told me once in Geneva, this Human Rights Council is all about politics. Is it? Is it correct?
That is a correct description of the situation. Even before the Human Rights Council was established about 10 years ago, we had a Human Rights Commission before, and it was a failure. Failure was because it was heavily politicized. By establishing the council, we thought we will be moving away from that situation, but unfortunately, old habits die hard. So,
but why are they playing politics with human rights? You are a very senior veteran diplomat. I'm sure you can enlighten our viewers.
That is how you could handle the powerful countries, particularly powerful countries in the West, try to handle the developing countries. Human Rights Council or the Human Rights Commission before was used as a tool.
Is it a place to bully? Is it bully or because? But there are human rights violations. Not only Sri Lanka, US, all these countries, but do they bully the small countries?
When you look at the Geneva scene and the Human Rights Council, you always find the resolutions are being introduced against or, okay, you use the word against, developing countries. You never see a situation where a resolution being introduced with regard to human rights situation or prison conditions situation or the treatment of women in the United States or Great Britain or Canada or Australia.
And I saw something very interesting in the media now. Saudi Arabia is got some human rights chair. But do you think there are human rights violations or everybody is free, the ladies, women can move around in Saudi? What's this situation?
Well, that is totally different situation in the sense the United Nations, it is divided into geographical segments, and so Saudi Arabia comes under Asia, and it is the decision of the members of the Asian group and the council as a whole how a particular country comes into the council. For example, Sri Lanka has been in the council for so many years, despite the fact that there were allegations of human rights violations since the 1980s. So it is no reflection of the real situation on the ground in that particular country.
Yeah, but you still said that there is, in Geneva there's so much, it's politics, not more than human rights. But so what will happen to Sri Lanka? People are waiting, do you think that we will walk into a trap? Because I think there is euphoria, we are elated, okay, governments have changed, things will be fine. That's the feeling among the masses. What do you think? You served in Geneva, you served in New York, you served in China, you know it all.
Yeah, that is how we look at it from Sri Lanka, that there has been a change, administration has changed, therefore the world opinion about Sri Lanka would change. That is an expectation on the part of Sri Lankans. But when you see how the handlers handle the situation in Geneva, it is a totally different situation.
Who are the handlers, if you tell our viewers?
Well, basically, in this particular instance, I can't say, but it is the Western countries. My experience in the 1980s and 1990s was that each or a particular country will be given the responsibility of handling Sri Lanka, handling Vietnam, or handling some other country. And that particular country will draft the initial draft with the assistance of several other countries and come up and present it to their own group, and they keep on loading the draft resolution, and eventually they will submit it. But there will be negotiations, so there will have to be negotiations. If not, the country concerned can say, okay, we will go for a vote. Let us see what the rest of the 47-member Human Rights Council has to go to say about it. So there is an option to go for a vote. If that is not the road to go, then it is possible to come to a compromise, discuss, negotiate, remove the unnecessary paragraphs, remove the offensive references to the country, and come to an understanding.
But can we see, or can we expect an overnight change from the US and all those countries who stood with US against Sri Lanka, rightly or wrongly?
Personal experience tells me it is difficult to expect a change unless you protect your own turf, fight hard. There will be interested elements who would like to have their fingerprints on the draft resolution later to say this particular paragraph was introduced by my country or amended by my country or whatever it is.
So they feel like, they'll feel like let down. Is it? Or?
Not let down. They will try to see what they can do to harden the language, improve the language from their point of view. And it is up to our delegation to see to what extent the language could be diluted to be acceptable to us. Otherwise, it is a case of asking for a vote so that the council members can decide whether it is reasonable.
Like the previous years, that whether rightly or wrongly, there was a fight, there was a battle. Geneva, there was a battle. Diplomatically or undiplomatically, there was a battle, and there were certain groups which helped us, and there were groups who opposed us. And there were heavy lobbying, both from Sri Lanka as well as the United States, which brought the resolution. And we are also known as a non-aligned country. Where is the non-aligned group here?
Well, if you go back into 2012, 2013, 2014 resolutions, you see the support Sri Lanka received from those countries. Of the 47 countries, 23 countries voted for the resolution, and many voted against, and some others abstained. So basically speaking, majority of non-aligned countries will vote against, if there is a vote, the resolution, depending on the stance taken by the Sri Lanka delegation and the request they make of the non-aligned group.
But we are now seen as friends of the United States. Now John Kerry visited here, Nisha Biswal comes here often. We have gone there. Now President Maithripala Sirisena is in New York. He might meet Obama at these functions. So we are suddenly seen as a good buddy of the United States. So how would these non-aligned countries see this at this juncture?
Well, it is a difficult choice for the non-aligned countries in that sense, because the situation has changed and Sri Lanka is seen as trying to mend their ways, so to build bridges with the West. So it will be a little bit difficult, but still again it is up to our ambassador in Geneva and to our delegation to explain the situation to the non-aligned countries and ask for their support if that kind of a support is required.
Yeah, because as a small and a poor country, we need everybody's support. But how, now see, you are our ambassador to China, and how do you think China would see this situation right now?
Well, China has a principled position with regard to human rights situations, and they say that there should be no interference from foreign countries or the international community with regard to the internal situations of a country. And particularly China has traditionally played a very important role against this kind of resolutions against Sri Lanka. And I will not be surprised if that situation continues, because it is a principled position taken by China.
So unlike, I mean, they don't change like some other countries?
Not to my knowledge, and China considers Sri Lanka as a all-weather friend. So all-weather friend is good for sunshine, rain, snow, or whatever it is. So that is what Sri Lanka has been to China, and China has been to Sri Lanka always.
And how do you see the Indian position right now at present? Now again we are talking of good relationship with India. How do you see that?
Now once again we have very improved relations, which India voted differently last year than before. That is also a changed perception on the part of Indian
because government. India has a strong government, that they had no influence from Tamil Nadu. Maybe that was the reason.
That is not exactly the situation. To a certain extent you are right, but of course it is the center. At least the Prime Minister Modi has made it clear that he is on the driving seat and he decides, and what he decides right or good for India and good for Sri Lanka, I'm sure Indian administration will do.
Yeah, now I must go back to, now you served as our ambassador in Washington. I mean, what happened to Sri Lanka-US relationship? What went wrong?
Well, what went wrong was gradually we went down the precipice. 2005 we had a very good relationship, and as I indicated earlier, the US Navy gifted the warship to Sri Lanka 2005 March. There were a lot of assistance providing lethal as well as non-lethal supplies for the Sri Lankan armed forces. But 2006 was the turning point when I remember when the former army commander visited the United States, Washington.
That General Sarath Fonseca.
Sarath Fonseca, when he visited, he was cautioned by the State Department with regard to the worsening human rights situation in the country. That was repeated again when the Foreign Minister Bogalagama visited in the following year, 2007 March. Then the situation continued as the war accelerated, and by 2009, of course, the situation was so bad from the eyes of the United States, as seen by the representatives of the House and the Senate, influenced by the Sri Lankan diaspora to a great extent. We had a difficult situation.
What did they expect from Sri Lanka, you know? Because we suffered for 30 years, so what did they expect? How did they want us to continue with this eradicating terrorism?
As Foreign Secretary Kerry mentioned, fighting this kind of a war is not an easy task, but there are instances where I have been personally told that governments must take measures to at least to demonstrate to the international community and to the world that they look at these kind of violations, so alleged violations, seriously, and when possible, take legal action against offenders.
Are we paying the price for being a small and a poor country, whilst the US has maintained very, high standards in Afghanistan, Iraq, and maybe even Pakistan, human rights and attack against innocent civilians?
Yes, when we pick a fight, we should know what our weight is. And if we don't realize that, then we get into difficulties. That is what happened to us during the past few years. We did not fight our right weight and got ourselves into difficulties.
Yeah, but what do we do? How do we deal with the only so-called superpower in this world? Because you see, it's like they are looking at their interests. We have to look at our interests. But where do we go from here?
Well, once again, if we are in the cricket field, we have to play cricket, not football. So there are rules of the game, and you try to play the game according to the rules. And when you make mistakes, then you have to realize, understand that the penalty you have to pay will be heavy.
So Sri Lanka, you're saying we played football during a cricket match?
Well, something closer to that, yes.
But now after you finished your term, you came back to Sri Lanka, then things eroded fast in 2009. Then a friend of mine, or I would say I know him, Jali Wickremesuriya was appointed. He served there for a long time, and that's where these lobby groups entered. And we failed. We paid millions of dollars to these lobby groups, and we failed. Why? What happened?
Well, in the Washington scene, you see so many countries employing lobby groups. But they are there for a particular purpose. And we entered that particular scene very recently, and perhaps once again we did not know the rules of that particular game, and we ended up having half a dozen or more lobby groups trying to serve the interests of Sri Lanka.
And we were too late, far too late to...
It was, yes. By that time the game was over and the spectators were going home when we started getting the lobby groups to function and take care of our interests. The point is actually so far, hitherto from 1948 or 1950s onwards, the embassy was the anchor point for promotion of Sri Lanka's interests. And if we have a good outfit there, like we earlier mentioned...
that reminds me, must tell our viewers where Ambassador Ernest Correa, who was also former editor of Daily News, and during that time where President J.R. Jayawardena went to Washington during the time of President Ronald Reagan. That's where, it was a Rose Garden event, and then I remember we were watching that with pride, and then I remember, none other than Frank Sinatra sang for J.R. Jayawardena. We really felt proud where this man in this humble national attire went and really reached the heights. But we never got there since then.
Well, we had a very good ambassador at that time, and we had a very good team to back him up at that time.
And also I must tell the viewers that I still remember our present ambassador in Geneva, Ravinatha Aryasinghe. He covered that event for a media outlet he was working for. I still remember that.
Yes.
So again, coming back, what went wrong after that? Lobby groups, different people, high-level visits.
So inability of the embassy to handle the situation because of the staffing situation of the embassy. When that is heavily politicized, you find it a situation. I was in Washington, and my deputy was Ambassador Ravinatha Aryasinghe, and I knew how he did it. And we also had another officer, not from the foreign service, but a lady from outside, from the media world, and she also did a very good job. But when such professionals are not around to take care of the interests of the country, and individuals are appointed on political grounds, then you fail. Then you revert, or you look for lobby firms, and they also fail for a variety of reasons. I don't think I have time to explain as to why. but they are not familiar.
Briefly why they fail.
Lobby firms are not familiar with the country. They will also take 1 year to understand the country just as much as
the ambassadors would do.
Ambassadors and their public officers would do. So what we need actually is to have a strong unit in principal countries in the world, so that promotion of Sri Lanka and its interests would be carried out by professionals.
But also, don't you think that we should be able to understand the US or that country? And I remember, I think when Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, the previous time when President Chandrika Kumartunga was there, he went to Washington. That's the time when he returned only, he was removed.
I was there. I was there.
You were there, and I remember speaking to Ambassador James Payne here. And then he was telling me something very interesting. He said you should be able to speak the language of the Americans. And he said he paid a compliment to someone whom you know very well, to Mr. Milinda Morogoda. That time he said he speaks the language. So when you ask, that is what he said of understanding. Coming from Ambassador James Payne was something very important. So whereas, like you said, our people failed to understand Sri Lanka, or they couldn't understand the US.
Yes, I remember I was in Washington 2 different times, New York 3 different times. One occasion I saw Mr. Milinda Morogoda trying to help Sri Lanka when the human rights situation came up in the early 80s, and I saw how effective he was in the Washington scene, having been living and studying in the United States for quite a while. So, well, yes, he spoke the language, he knew the people, and sometimes he was able to access individuals that the State Department could not access, and made them available to Sri Lanka. So that is the ability of individuals and the selection of individuals who understand the American or the Washington
That
scene.
is where I think we failed in you see, in some foreign relations. These things are important, isn't it?
Yes, not having experienced officers, experienced personalities running the embassy or serving the embassy was an hindrance.
And also, I would like to ask, I remember Ambassador Jeffrey Lunstead of the United States, when he is here, I think he spoke Sinhalese, and I think his degree was on Sanskrit. I remember meeting him with late Mr. Lakshman Kadregam. He knew the language. Whereas our foreign service, somebody who knows Chinese would be sent to Indonesia, somebody who would know German would be sent to India. So those people really train, and that helps those officers to interact with that country. But that's where we have failed, isn't it?
Well,
can we rectify it?
We can rectify so long as our political hierarchy decides the importance or recognize the importance of foreign missions. It is not merely to staff them with individuals who are known in the political field, but who are experienced and educated enough to understand that particular country. So some countries follow that particular procedure of trying to select individuals who are experienced in the country where they are supposed to go and serve.
So we might have to completely revamp our foreign ministry or the representation. Do you think so? But I agree, we need political appointees like America. They would have the Obamas, the best lawyers who funded it. They are all over the country. But what I have noticed is they are qualified also. I remember in Ottawa they send a lawyer. They are qualified and they are trained for the job. Like Australia will do that, which we don't do. We just straight away send them go away. And it's very difficult. Like you said, it takes 1 year for them to settle down. So if we have proper training, proper institutes like we have one at the BCIS, we should have much more institutes.
Yes, training is important. In the past, we used to send our foreign service officers to foreign countries to study with other foreign service officers. That kind of arrangements were there before, and I am not aware, I am not familiar now whether such scholarships are given for training of foreign officers. Then of course they must also be trained, as you said, locally. So that emphasis is very important for them to go and serve the country. They should have that kind of background and experience.
My final question, do you think the present government would do that? They would emphasize and invest on this training and to have a good set of foreign officers as well as political appointees who are well trained. Can we expect that from
It is not for me to say what should be done. At least the government wishes to make use of the foreign diplomatic mission to the benefit of the country, good of the country. Then they will have to select well experienced people who are capable people, whether from outside or within the foreign service. So that is important. For that they will have to recognize the importance of the mission so far as Sri Lanka is concerned.
Stephanie?
Well, thank you, Mr. Bernard Gunathilaka. It was a pleasure having you with us on Newsline. And to keep abreast with all what's happening here at News First, you can simply log on to our website, www.newsfirst.lk, and also you can follow us on our Twitter handle, that's at newsfirst_en, at newsfirst_en. Until we meet again tomorrow, you have a nice day. Tomorrow we meet again, same time, same place.